Okay, I want to welcome everyone to our July 24th, 2014 City Council Workshop. The time now is 6:02. First item on the agenda is discussion of EDC property owned at 6101 Midway Road. This is an item which was requested to be placed on the agenda by Councilmember Grow. Mr. Grow.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Okay, just so I get this right, I wrote some things down. Okay, the reason that I asked for this to be put on the agenda, on July 10th, 2017, the entire City Council received an email from Tim Sanson, I hope I got that right, and he contacted about an offer. So just to go, before I go into the email about that offer, so let me give some back history about this so the audience and people on TV can understand what we're talking about. So, my understanding, the city acquired the 6101 Midway property through a land swap deal for some property over on Old Denton Road.
It's owned by the EDC, not the city.
Okay,
not
well, the
city.
EDC. So
It's a separate entity.
correct, it's a separate entity, but if the EDC disappeared and went away, all that property would revert to the city. So, all intents and purposes, it's owned by the city. And we received an email this week from our counselor saying that, in a sense, it is the city because the city appoints board members to that EDC, so it is an EDC, is a body of the city. And that was one of your arguments last week when Mr. Nunn was mentioned as a possible
Correct.
candidate. So that was your argument, and I concur with that argument.
Okay.
So the EDC / the city owns this property, and it was developed or was obtained through a land swap, my understanding through a deal that was on Old Denton Road and the property over on Midway. And so there are no records for this because they apparently got destroyed, and now we have to rely on tribal knowledge about who or how did we acquire this property. And that, as you said on January 23rd, that was 14 years ago. So we have this property for 14 years. So how we got it and how the EDC attained it, that's a whole different can of worms. And so this is not the point of this. So in my research, the first time that I was able to find any reference to this property was on February 25th, 2016, when the organic recycler, Mr. Tim Sansa's company, made an unsolicited offer to purchase the property. And the EDC made the correct decision to reject that offer because it was for $90,000. And as Mr. Sansa stated in the January 23rd of 2017 meeting, it was just to get the door open so we get to talk. And that got the ball rolling. So then, over the period of time, Mr. Sansa again talked to the EDC, and so on 11/17, it appears again on the EDC, and again, EDC did not make any action. And so then the City Council had a workshop to talk about new municipal facilities. And Mr. Sansa was at that meeting and talked to myself and several other council members and had some samples of his material and was basically introducing himself and to talk about coming to a city council meeting to discuss the EDC property. So Mr. Sanson made a presentation on, well, I'm getting ahead of myself. So then on December 15th, again, Mr. Sanson talked to the EDC with a new offer, and that didn't go anywhere, apparently. And so Mr. Sanson came to the City Council on January 23rd, 2017, and a workshop session, just as like this, spoke to the council about obtaining this property, laid out some numbers. There was some back and forth about what those numbers were going to be, and the mayor was steadfast in his opposition to selling this property, and on multiple occasions talked about making a quick buck. The way I look at it, we've been sitting on this property for 14 years. 14 years sitting on a piece of property is not a quick buck, okay? So So then, Mr. Sanso again attended a EDC meeting on February 17th, where he made another presentation. At that EDC meeting, there was some back and forth, and there are a number of conditions that were presented to Mr. Sanso. Mr. Sanso wasn't able to give a definitive answer at that time, and he had to go talk to his partners, and so that was rejected. So then, again, Mr. Sansa came. Now, this time, Mr. Sansa sent an email to the entire city council about this property, outlining his offer. And his offer is $2 million, and with a couple of conditions. So, backing up, on February 7th, the city, sometime in February, the city had contracted with a company to go and have an appraisal made on this property. Also, Mr. Sansa had an appraisal made on the property. The city's appraiser came back with a valuation of $1.6 million. And that was on February 7th, 2017. Mr. Sansa on July 10th sends an email saying that he would like to purchase the property for $2 million. That's 125% of value, over value of the appraised value of that property. Now, that's a large sum of money. So I'm curious, what are the reasons? Let me go read Mr. Sansa's email so we can understand, because Mr. Sansa also had some conditions in that email. So, dear Economic Development Council members, the 6101 Midway Road has not yet been developed. It remains a wooded lot with inherent site challenges. I would like to be the catalyst that transforms this lot and brings business to Haltom City. Over the last 2 quarters, the organic recycler has seen record growth with increasing sales across the DFW. It has been a great 6 months since my last meeting with the EDC. We feel even more confident that expanding to an additional site and relocating our headquarters is the right strategy. We are prepared to offer $2 million, well above the full appraised value of $1.6 for the property. Due to topographical and flood-related issues, this property requires exceptionally high development cost. We have estimated an additional $4 million for site improvements to maximize the potential. I am seeking reimbursement of 2% of the city sales tax generated from our business in the short term, 10 years, to offset those initial high costs. This has a direct benefit to the city in numerous ways. City receives upfront payment for property, $2 million. City does not have to pay development improvements. All development risk is carried by the organic recycler, give or take $6 million. City gains property tax revenue in the initial start of sale, $60,000 a year. City gains full sales tax revenue after 10 years. Short sales tax repayment window encourages rapid development, performance-based. City gains large businesses moving to Haltom City with numerous new jobs. School gains property tax revenue with the initial start of sale, $125,000 a year. Influx of jobs from multiple business, 150 jobs within 2 years. I am writing the EDC on my own accord and have not been encouraged by staff to make an offer on this property. In fact, they have respectfully resisted bringing you this latest offer. The reasoning is that the EDC has expressed a desire to go in a different direction. However, I feel compelled to make one more offer on the property. This latest offer is more lucrative offer for the city and the development of the Highway 121 corridor. Therefore, I am respectfully asking that each of you would consider this offer and that my offer be considered in the upcoming EDC agenda. We are truly excited about the potential to move to Haltom City. Thank you for your consideration. I do not have emails for all the members of the EDC, and using the city website to contact you, please forward this email to those not copied. Sincerely, Tim Sanson, Managing Partner, Organic Recycler. And since the city council has 4 members of the EDC, he just put everybody on here, so I'm guessing that's how the entire city council got it. So in my, now we've been dealing with this for over a year, and I was curious if there was any responses from any of the city council members. And so the only one that made a response was the mayor. And so here's the mayor's response to this. Mr. Sansa, in my opinion, your decision to submit a purchase offer for a property owned by our EDC via email is highly inappropriate. Additionally, I do not believe your current business plan supports this proposal. I will be in contact with our management team regarding your submission. Thank you, David Averett, Haltom City Mayor. So, okay, this is, like I said, this is a property that has been on the books for 2 years. The EDC has approximately $13 million in property. I've been involved in 2 budget sessions so far, about to roll into the number 3. And in those 2 budget sessions, we have dipped into our reserve because we did not want to raise the taxes of our citizens. And we have things that we have to fund. And we're about to see a presentation for the Haltom Road Veterans Memorial Park, which the initial discussion 2 years ago was going to be a $250,000 project. Now it's over $850,000. And as I stated earlier at the beautification board, this is something that should be top shelf. So whatever the cost is whatever the cost. I'm a veteran. I'm fortunate that I've never had to go to combat. I'm fortunate that I've never suffered a serious injury in training, that I've had to be labeled a disabled veteran. And so for paying for the Veterans Memorial, if it costs, $500,000 over budget, that's great because we are honoring those that have paid the ultimate sacrifice. So, but I'm just trying to, understand why you're adamant about not selling this. Scott Garrett, or Councilman Garrett, said in the 23rd of January meeting that you need to look at the audience and look in the cameras and give them a reason why and what your plan is. You've had a year now to come up with some sort of plan. Of anybody on here on the dais, I've had a plan for that piece of property, and part of that plan was to sell it when we had a viable individual that wanted to purchase it. So I'm just asking, Mr. Mayor, you're the president of the EDC, so what is the plan and what is the specific reason why you're adamant about not selling it?
Well, thank you, Mr. Groh. One of the EDC's responses to Mr. Sansone's proposal was to sell it to him based on his offer, and he rejected it. Did he tell you that?
Okay, the one that
Whatever
has
it
the
was,
multiple.
yes, back in,
Okay.
What was that, March or April, sometime along there? We
okay.
offered to sell it to him based
That
on
wa- okay, that
with him
wasn't
committing
April.
to that offer, and he
Okay.
rejected it. He
Well-
couldn't do it.
Mr. Mayor, if I
Yes, sir.
The other one. Yep.
don't mind, if I could interrupt. I have the opportunity to serve on. Oops, thank you, Mr. Grove. I have the opportunity to serve on both boards, and it's not in the best interest of this council nor the EDC to discuss many of the issues that are involved in this right now. It's highly inappropriate from both perspectives. I'm not trying to offend anyone, but if we're going to have an economic development corporation and it's set up of individuals that are currently 4 that are on the council and 3 that are individuals in the community, and the discussions that we have a lot of time are highly sensitive in where we're going, the direction, and what's happening. You've been privy to some of those, and you have the opportunity to.
All the information that I have is all from the minutes of the EDC, so they're all public record. Nothing I've discussed.
Well, executives, I'm not saying anything. What I'm trying to say is, in order for it to move forward and operate, there's a reason we go in executive session. There's a reason the Economic Development Corporation goes in executive sessions, and those aren't part of the minutes.
That's true.
And so a lot of the issues that are discussed in here, that the reason that this wasn't acceptable to the Economic Development Corporation at the time was based on those discussions.
Well,
so, and if we're going to open it up and just have wild discussions, and we never need to go in executive session. We need to do everything out here, from my understanding, the letter that was sent to the Economic Development Corporation, not the city.
Yes, it was sent to every member of the city council.
Okay, I understand,
And
but I'm
so-
saying, but
okay,
it typically
but-
should go to the Economic Development
Well,
Corporation.
Mr. Sanza is a citizen that's free to email any city council member, any staff at the city. And so he executed his First Amendment right
Correct.
to contact the city council and the EDC members that are on the council. So I think this is, this city council or this EDC has been a problem spot for Haltom City. With the previous economics director, the purchase of all that property over on 820 corridor, the 43 acres that we have. This thing, we've had 2 Fort Worth Weekly articles that highlight the questionable process. I don't think the city should be in the land speculation business.
Well,
And-
then if that's the case, then we need to offload the 43 acres that we have at,
Actually, that is in the process because we have an RFP out there.
well, I understand,
that
but we
the
just need
EDC
to,
has
we just
put out
need to
there.
put it up for sale. We don't need to deal with an RFP.
Well, that,
I mean, I understand where you're at, Councilmember Grove, but there was also actions that were taken. We put it on, as a previous council, we put this on the ballot, a ballot initiative to defund
Yes.
actually the EDC. And it was
Yes.
passed.
Yes, it
which
was.
Which I was in support of. But there is still an EDC in place that has to deal with the property that was the balance of that
Okay.
and the remainder.
all right. We're looking at and right now, and the EDC hasn't discussed this, so I don't know where the EDC is going. When you look at an offer that's 125% above value, and when the mayor responds that it's inappropriate, if somebody knocks on my door and offers me 125% value of my house, my car, or anything else, and they're willing to pay me cash money for it, guess what? More than likely it's going to be sold unless it's some family heirloom. But we're talking about a piece of property that's, half of it is swampland, because it's in the floodplain, or it should be considered, and the top acreage. And, the club has that as a mixed-use property. So the definition of mixed use is a planned development mixed-use overlay encourages a variety of housing types in pedestrians scaled neighborhoods serving commercial and institutional uses. And when you look at everything that is around there, it's all industrial. You have a heavy equipment company and you have a drilling company there. Unless you're going to plan on moving those people out and everything else there, you have an industrial area. We've had some businesses that came before this council wanting to put light industrial along Carson Street, and we've held steadfast on that. We have, when the club was designed, we said the council that voted that in said that Carson Street is going to be a commercial, and that makes the most sense because it's right on the exit off of 121. When you look at the property on Midway, the only way to get to it is you have to exit on Minnis and do a button hook back around to that piece of property. So an industrial use that Mr. Sands' company and the other business that he plans on bringing into that area make the most sense for that type of use.
But that's in your opinion, and understand, and I'm not trying to sit up here and debate with you, but you have 7 members on the EDC that looked at all angles of it and determined that it wasn't in the best interest.
Okay, no, on February 16th of this year, EDC was prepared to sell it. And Mr. Sands, I'm guessing that he rejected it because some of the conditions in it didn't meet. So he can answer. I didn't ask Mr. Sansa to be here, and so I'm happy he's here because he could put some insight into the negotiation that was going on between EDC, because he's free to speak.
This was all done in open session, so I think it's all free.
Could you come up and identify yourself?
This is Tim Sansone with the Organic Recycler. This discussion that I'm going to talk about was all in open session. I have not been in executive session, so this again is all I don't think I'm hiding any of the information. But the offer that we agreed to, we went back to my partner, we discussed it, and there was one or two things that we asked to change, and the EDC said no, but there wasn't a chance for us to accept the deal even as is. It was just no, closed doors, goodbye. And that was the discussion. And so we were left there going, okay, well, who do we talk to now? What's next? What do we do? And so I was left to send an email to all the council and see if there was anybody else that was interested in this offer before I closed the deal. And again, it's been 6 months since then, so I acknowledge the fact there may be other opportunities for the property. Seeing none, I thought it was a good opportunity to send another letter to the council to discuss it.
So I guess my question, what is the plan?
Once again, I have visions for that property that I would think that it would be. I'm not going to discuss them because it's not appropriate to discuss them at this point. You know, I mean, if we're going to do that, let's discuss what our visions are on 820.
Oh,
Or if that's the case, why don't we take the 43 acres that we have across from the library, and would you be willing to utilize that property?
I'm not sure. I'm not familiar with that. I'm not familiar where that location is, and I'm prepared to make an offer on the property we're discussing today.
Okay, but
Well,
if
okay, but
that property weren't in the floodplain or floodway, would you be willing to offer on that?
I'm not sure where the property is or the details of it.
So it's difficult. This is trying to kind of walk a fine line. Mr. Grove, there have been discussions about potential uses for that property. You had one that you potentially put forth.
The off-road park? The
Yes.
off-road, yeah.
Yes.
Mhm.
But, and I thought that had we not done research on that even, Mr. Manager?
On the off-road park?
Yes.
Yeah, we've done research on the off-road park, but not to the extent of, I mean, it's been potentially in so many different places. We've, at one point it was going to be here, one point it was going to be Old Barbrook Park, so there hasn't been an area settled on exactly. I'm not sure exactly. There's been also a couple different concept changes. Mr. Groves talked about a big one, and now he's talked about kind of a smaller concept. So I know that he and Christy have met a couple different times and talked about location.
I
and
took
everything.
our Parks Director, Chrissy Pruitt, over to the 43 acres of the 6100 Midway and showed her. And that was before the ball started rolling. And my whole intention is to utilize property that's just sitting there, dormant, and hopefully to get some revenue for the city. But I've always stated, if somebody came across and wanted to purchase that property, buy park, because $2 million in one shot is, I don't know how many years that we have to spend, running a park to get $2 million, or the 1.6 or 1.2 that was discussed in previous EDC sessions for that property. And so putting it back on the tax rolls makes more sense than just keeping it dormant in an inventory with the EDC.
Well, that's a matter of opinion, because it comes to the point of what is the highest and best use of the piece of property.
Well, and that's
So,
what I'm
and
asking.
it
What is your plan for the highest and best use of that property?
Okay, hang on, let them finish talking.
Well, once again,
You're not willing to discuss it.
I'm not willing. No, I'm not, because this is an executive session matter within the Economic Development Corporation. This is not a matter to be discussed out here at a council meeting in front of everyone. It's not. The city council does not control that property.
No, it doesn't, and that's some of the issue.
Well, why is that an issue, though?
Well, okay, some of the
You have
issue is
economic development corporations all over Texas. What we have
okay,
done is we've stripped
and that
the
is
funding.
correct.
We've stripped
And if I remember correctly from that Fort Worth Weekly article,
And what was the date on that article? Was it back in 2011?
yeah, it was back there.
7 or
Councilman
8 years
Fowler was pictured in
Yeah,
it.
so
and-
we've changed
Well,
the dynamic of the
but here's the thing.
organization since then.
In that article, it was mentioned that nobody's ever seen an EDC do land speculation like the Haltom City EDC. So this is we are pioneers in some things, and apparently We are pioneers in land speculation. And so
Okay, and no one on this council was any part of that. So
that is correct. And so I don't understand why we're not selling it, because, you know, as we have, you know, started going down the road of looking at developing the 43 acres that you wanted to sell to Mr. Sampson, we have learned that we do not know anything about land development.
then why are we doing RFPs and why are we messing?
Because we are looking
why-
for developers. We have talked to HAP.
But why don't we
We've had
just sell-
Mr.
if that's the
Baggett
case-
here.
If that's the count, if that's the situation, then why do we not just sell the property, put a for sale sign on it, take the highest offer we get? Let's just put it up for 90 days, take the
I'm
highest
fine
offer
with
we
that.
get.
I'm fine with that.
Okay.
Because, you know, if a piece of land is sold from one person to the next person, we do not tell them what to do with it. They don't until they come in. As long as it meets the code, you know, if they meet the zoning and the code, we don't know anything about it. So when people swap land, you know, we don't know anything about it. This is one of these unique cases where the EDC/city has a piece of property, and for some reason, you know, we have a death grip on it. And so I don't understand why, you know, we are able to put this land into production and have a business come to the city. Because I know when I ran the first time, I only had 3 things I cared about. You know, economic development, fiscal responsibility, and improving Haltom City's appearance. You know, because I got frustrated every time I talked to somebody. Oh, you're from Haltom City, and so then, you know, they're moving their purse, or you know, they expect me to jack them, and so I'm tired of it. You know, this is an opportunity that we're able to probably build off of this, just like the wonderful people at the Haltom Theater. You know, this is something that we can do a press release that Fort Worth is losing a business, and it's coming to Haltom City. And so there are so many things that we could do to spin this in a great way, instead of us fighting over, you know, if somebody came and said, wow, somebody's about to give you $2 million, $400,000 above our appraiser's valuation, and we walk away from it.
Mr.
You know,
Groh?
yes, sir.
You stated more than once that your background isn't in real estate.
That is
correct?
that is
It's
correct.
in IT, correct?
That is correct.
And why are you not trusting those who are on the EDC
Well,
who
and that's
have
why- okay.
backgrounds in real estate?
And-
Why are you
and-
not trusting their judgment?
Well, because
It may not make sense to you,
it's
but if that group,
125%. And so unless you have
again,
okay,
I don't tell you how to build websites.
what's your
You shouldn't
business
tell-
plan? You know, I don't
Again,
understand how you could tell Mr. Sansa his business
It
model.
has nothing to do with the business plan. It has to do with
Well,
your
your
trust.
email said that. You don't think his business plan,
And again, I would
Does-
be more than
would-
happy
is
to
not a
discuss
good-
that with him personally.
but
We're not-
apparently you know his business plan because you said it's let me
it's
go-
inappropriate. You should have
No.
contacted me as mayor or me as the president of the EDC. You did neither. You sent an email to the entire city council.
Which is his right.
Did you send me directly a letter via email or registered letter?
Actually, I was instructed by city staff not to send anything to the EDC
But
because
yet you went
of the
ahead and
turmoil.
took the initiative
that
on
was-
your own to send
Okay,
an email,
but-
correct?
But Mr. Mayor,
I'm
so
sorry,
you're
Mr. Mayor.
you're an expert in his business plan. Because that's what you put in here. Additionally, I do not believe your current business plan supports this proposal. You know what? I don't care.
I see no distinction
You know what?
between this one and the previous one.
I don't care what his business plan is. It's $2 million coming into the budget of the city. And if he wants to sit on it for 10 years, that means that in 10 years, we're getting property tax off of a $2 million piece of property because he has set the value. So Tad is going to take that value and increase it to $2 million, which means the city gets tax revenue on a $2 million valuation. And if he sits on it, that's his and his partner's problem. Because I guarantee you, he's going to be motivated to turn that piece of property into an asset that he's able to generate revenue and make his money back on it.
Dr. Trong, did you have a question or a comment?
At first, you know, I have nothing. First time I hear a lot of information from Councilman Groh. I appreciate that. I wish I have all of that.
Well, I'm going to post it on my Facebook page for Walter for
Awesome.
Haltom, so everybody will be able to have this information because I truly believe, you know, everybody needs the information that I'm talking about, and you know, it is all available on the website. But I've collected it for everybody, so it'll be all in one stream with a link to the 23rd of January work session where we could hear Mr. Sansa discuss his proposal. Again, that proposal is probably a little outdated because now it has a $2 million and straight up sale. So,
May I?
Is that everything,
So-
Dr. Strong?
Thank you so much, and I think right now I'm lost a little bit. I would like to have more information, and if there is a problem, why don't we move to executive session to discuss before that? And if, no, hang
Yeah.
on, I'll finish right away,
Yeah.
then you talk. Then if we have problem, communication between EDC and council, because only 4 elect officials in EDC board, right? So the rest of us, we don't know what's going on. Why don't we try to have the joint session between all council and EDC to solve this problem? What the point you bring out is not bad, but right now in front of the public, you know, I don't think it's look good for us. Seem like we are divided, and that's what my personal, I feel like we are divided,
Well-
and that's not good for public in
Well-
Haltom City. I
well-
would like we move to executive session, discuss more before we bring to.
Well,
the
I don't
public.
think executive session for the city council will be very effective since the city council has no say in what the EDC does. So I think that would just be a waste of clock cycles. I think just discussing it and finding out, since we have 4 members of the EDC on here, and more than likely they're not going to say anything because it's an EDC matter. But I'm looking at this as an opportunity to let the people know about what's going on with the EDC.
So,
And
so Mr. Gross, so what you're saying is then the EDC is acting completely inappropriately is what your opinion is?
I'm not saying it's inappropriate, but, you know,
Well, I mean,
I would
yeah.
like to know what they're doing with the city assets.
I
you know,
understand, but
and what's the plan for it?
I'm a
And-
little offended by that you're say, you know, I mean, and we're friends, but I'm a little offended and taken back by the fact that you say that, you know, what the EDC is doing with it and this and that. The EDC was set up and is set up in every community around that has one.
Yeah.
Is set up somewhat very similar to the methodology that we use. That has to be. Is it not, Mr. Olson, is it not regulated by state statute,
Oh, yeah.
the EDC?
Uh-oh.
Wake up down there.
Yeah, absolutely. The EDC is regulated by the local government code. It's got very specific regulations that apply to it. It is subject to different powers than the city council has, and it's limited in the projects that it can avail itself of, so.
As well as the outreach from the city council reaching into the EDC.
As I've touched on previously, the city council has the authority to approve all programs and expenditures of the EDC, but the EDC itself is a separate body that makes decisions about the projects that it wants to be involved in. And as we're discussing this, and I think the council, I'm hearing this from all the council members, I mean, the property that's owned by the EDC is subject to the control of the EDC, and they have to make the ultimate decision on whether or not they want to utilize that property for one purpose or another.
Yep. And I guess my main motivation is just to put some sunshine onto this piece of property.
Okay, but then
Grandstanding.
my main motivation is
Okay, let me respond to that
let-
grandstanding. Okay.
I don't want to be,
Of
excuse
anybody,
me, I have the
of
floor.
any of us on this,
I
on
don't-
this dais. Well, no, you know what? If the mayor's gonna make comments,
I-
because he made
Councilmember
comments
Councilmember
before.
Grow, you allow Councilmember Fowler to finish his
Please,
comment.
Oh, okay.
let's all
Oh, go
please,
ahead. Go ahead, finish.
let's just allow me to finish, please. I have the floor. That's all I ask from both of you. There's a reason that we go in and just like you see executive session on here, 51, 071, 072, 074. There's a reason that we discuss those things, and there's, you know, some things I can have an appreciation for what you're saying about trying to shed light on things, but not everything that goes on in an organization, whether it be a city council, whether it be the federal government, the state government, whether it be a bank board. A bank board doesn't shed light. You know, there's a reason that you have HIPAA laws and everything else. You can't expose everything that goes on in an organization. You cannot do it. And if that's the case, if you feel like that's what we need to do, then we need to not go into executive session anymore as a body, as a council body, and we don't need to do it as an EDC either. But what's good for one is good for another, because there's a reason that you conduct business that's sensitive in a more secure or more discreet manner.
Are you done?
Yes, sir, go ahead.
Okay. Now, before I discuss yours, let me discuss the mayor's underhanded comment or under-breath comment about me grandstanding. I have no desire to move on to further elected office. You know, I got myself onto this thing because I shot my mouth off probably 8 years ago. And so that's how I ended up on here, and I'm making my commitment for 6 years. So if people want to keep me on here for another 2 years, great. If they don't, great. My life is not wrapped up in this. And of anybody, you know, Dr. Trong maybe, but my only interest in this city is for the best of the city. I do not own any other property other than the house that I live in, and I have no investments in the city. And so I am not a wheeler and dealer in real estate, you know, working, having, you know, have a business that has interactions with city governments, county governments, or any government. I'm a consultant. So my only thing is what is best for the city. And when I look at it, you know, we have a budget that we've been dipping into our reserves, 2% into the reserves. We have an opportunity to bring a business into this city, get $2 million. So I don't know, again, I'm just bringing sunshine, and I hope the members of the EDC that are currently here and the ones that are not here view this, and if they don't view it, hopefully somebody will text them and say, hey, you need to check out the video on today's council meeting so they could see what's going on.
But may I respond?
Yeah, of course.
Mr. Mayor, I'm not trying to speak out of line, but I understand and I can greatly appreciate the fact of being open and you know, I don't have any problem explaining anything that goes on outside of what is highly sensitive to this board as a city council member or the position that I serve as an economic development member. Believe you me, I think there was way too much covert and discreet things that went on years ago. That's why like I said, I supported stripping the funding from it. You know, we put it as a referendum on the ballot. You know, so I don't disagree with you with that at all, but I still think there's certain things that you have to discuss that have sensitive matter that you cannot go out and just completely discuss in the public.
Let
me finish, please.
Go ahead.
As far as the $2 million, that money does not go into the general fund. That money goes to the EDC corporation.
And that's fine.
So, but it doesn't help. That doesn't help build a park. That doesn't help do any of that. All it helps is just like when we had an opportunity to do a facade grant or do you know, some kind of grant funding for the Haltom Theater like we approved funding for the other night. That money goes into the EDC to help fund those projects. It doesn't go into building memorial parks. It doesn't go into helping the general fund budget. And Mr. Manager, would you make sure that I'm correct in my statement? Is that correct?
It does go into the EDC fund, and the EDC fund, as you know, can be used for lots of different things. We've had personnel that we funded out of the EDC before, projects, grants. So there's a lot of, it's a big umbrella that covers what EDC funds can be spent on. Wayne, I'm sure can give you more detail.
Well, I know it's been used to pay for the mowing of the property that the EDC has, and
right.
But now that's been rolled up into the general fund budget.
I don't believe that that's completely been funded into that.
Well, it's
correct,
a combination of things.
Well, irregardless, it gets back to the situation of, you know, I can greatly appreciate shining light on anything, but there are sensitive things that any board, whether it be a board of directors of a bank or a city council or in any organization, I'm sure your board, if they're going to roll out some IT project, they're not going to go discuss it with, although they're private sector, but they're not going to go discuss that in open air, open public meeting. They're going to do it behind closed doors.
Not necessarily, because when you deal with software, you generally want buy-in from your users.
Right.
And
but,
so,
okay, maybe that was a poor example on my part, but I just don't. I don't feel like, like I say, I try to be as upfront, and believe you me,
in my understanding, an executive session is for negotiation purposes. So you go into an executive session to discuss the different things, and we see that on the minutes on EDC meetings where you have $1 million up front, projected sales tax revenue within 3 years. Number two, then you have A, B, and C. For 3 years, you have 210,000. 4 years, 250,000. 5 years, 300,000. That's what the executive session's for, is to hammer out the things, and then you present it to the prospective buyer, and then it's up to them to say yay or nay. And so, from the minutes, the EDC has been willing to sell this property, and it looks like you put a poison pill in here to keep people from saying yes, because they look at it and it's like, the first lien, so you put the first lien of the lower 43 acres as the EDC. So in case he defaults, the bank doesn't get it, the city gets it. And so that's a poison pill. No bank in their right mind is going to say, yes, we're going to let somebody else get the first shot at it before it reverts back to us. And so that's a poison pill. That's used in, stocks. You do some sort of thing. If you're a merger or an acquisition takeover, you set your business up to where you have this huge, enormous debt, and if somebody gets it, they're going to buy the company, and then they get this debt. So that's a standard practice if you want to protect yourself or keep something from actually happening. So you put a number of hurdles in there, and you have one that is impossible to surmount. So it looks like Mr. Sansa says, look, let's cut to the chase. I'm just going to offer you $2 million free and clear, other than the 2% over 10 years, which sounds reasonable, but I guess that would be negotiable. But, I'm looking at it. You guys, the EDC was willing to sell. And it sounds like Mr. Sanson just came back with a counteroffer and said, let's forget all the hurdles and just go 2 million square.
Well, Mr. Sansone hasn't presented that to the Economic Development Corporation, so, but I will take it under advisement when we go into, if it gets presented to us as an Economic Development Board. But is it your position, so that I can take back to them the other people that aren't here, just so I'll know, to clarify, is it your position to put all EDC property up for sale?
You know what? As I told, I would be good with that.
That's a fair answer. I just want to know. So
I'm not an expert in real estate. I think there are people that are experts in real estate that know how to develop property, but I don't think it's a city to pick and choose the winners and losers.
Okay.
And I think that's what's happening. We're picking. Maybe we just don't. Maybe we don't care for Mr. Sansa, and we're going to pick somebody else to do it. I think it should just be put out there, and let's divest of all this property. Like we have $13 million in property, completely divest of it, and let people come to council if they have variations to the ordinances that they need, or if they have a planned development. Let them come to council, and then we'll have our say in it. But I don't think we should be picking and choosing.
But that's fine. I just want to make clear. So you recommend that the EDC has different criteria that they follow to
I think
be able to sell property, but not on the council.
Well, I think EDC's primary, again, going back to the Fort Worth Weekly articles, nobody's ever seen an EDC purchase a bunch of property. Their primary role is to attract businesses into the city and help business. I really think the city should be partners with the businesses. I think we should be looking at ways to help improve their way to get business, get customers into their door. I think that's a better use for the EDC. It's like, let's attract companies to come over to our city, help them get planted, figure out ways to get more efficient. Everything I've heard is Haltom City is the least business-friendly city, and I'm like, nah, it can't be. But I've had friends of my church say, man, Haltom City, holy smokes. And with Mr. Sansa's experience, I'm going to say yes. We are probably one of the most least friendly cities for business. I can't see any other reason why.
Well, then we need to take a look at our staff. If they're that unfriendly, I think we need to look into our staff if that's the case, because I don't typically see them being that unfriendly. You know, a lot of these guys, the reason that they're unfriendly is when you ask for a lot of things that are oftentimes not even begin to be accepted in another community, and yet they come to Haltom City and they ask for, 13 variances on a new piece of property. I don't think that's business unfriendly.
No.
I think that's just the fact that we're finally trying to navigate this ship forward in a manner that makes sense, and instead, has anyone, if you don't mind me asking, deviate a little bit from the Haltom, has anyone from staff, the Haltom Theater Group, been unfriendly to y'all, or do y'all feel like it's a business unfriendly environment? No? Okay. It may just be those, Councilmember Grow, that are asking for things that are, let's just say, above and beyond, and they don't get what they would like. So, I hear it.
And I agree. And I've talked to Mr. French about it, and because they talk about permits and things like that. And I go, is there anything different that we do than anything different about our ordinances and permits than, do we do anything extraordinary? And he goes, no, we pretty much adhere to the international building code and things like that. So again, you have to take everything with a grain of salt of what people say, because it's perceptions and things like that. And as you said, again, we've had a number of businesses come in here for variances of different things, and some we say yes and some we say no, depending on each case.
That's our job.
And exactly, that's our job. But again, I don't think it's our job to, I think we should divest ourselves of the property.
Well, and that's fair enough. And I have no problem with you feeling that way. But to insinuate that we're not business friendly and that the economic development
I'm
board
not insinuating
is operating,
anything. I'm just.
But you made a comment that the economic development board was operating in a,
No.
in a shaded area, which, and I can tell you, if that was the case, I'm not going to be involved with it.
Okay.
And so I can assure you, I don't think that that's what's going on. Mr. Sansone, do you feel like you've been treated in an unfriendly manner from the staff's perspective?
No, I'm not here to embarrass anybody, so I'd prefer not to answer that question.
That's fine. Okay, that's
Okay.
fair enough. I appreciate your honesty.
Well, Yep.
But I just don't feel like and it's not that I don't just feel like, I know it's not proper, and it's not, shouldn't be, the negotiations and the things that were discussed should not be brought out. There's a reason you have executive session, and there's a reason that we go into it, and that should stay in executive session.
okay. So there are things that have to come out of executive session. So it's like these 5 items that from the March 2nd EDC meeting. You came out with 5 items and said, hey, Mr. Sansa, here's what we're going to do to sell. So that's open session. So that's not executive session. Mr. Sansa's email is free and open to the public because it's in our city mailboxes. So people have a right to go view it. And so what we're talking about is not an executive session item. Everything I've discussed is documented and available to anybody that wants to go surf our website. So I'm just going to say, I hope Mr. Sansa gets in front of the EDC again and presents his $2 million. He says he addresses it to the EDC members. The only EDC members that he's able to get an email address are the ones that are on council. And so I would say this was a formal counteroffer to your March 2nd offer.
And that's fair enough. And as an EDC member, I'm sure we'll take that up and debate and negotiate it.
Well, I'm looking forward to it.
Okay, that being said, any other questions or comments regarding this? Okay, seeing nothing else, we will adjourn we'll just adjourn at, what time is it, Art? It's 6:50. I can't see. Okay, 6:50, we'll adjourn. Council, if you would please make your way towards the dais. It is now 7 p.m. Okay, we now have a quorum. We'll go ahead and begin our meeting at 7:03. I want to welcome everyone to our July 24th, 2017 City Council meeting. The time now is 7:04. First item on the agenda is the invocation of Pledge of Allegiance. If you would, please rise. Dear Lord, thank you for allowing us the opportunity to live in a country where we are free to meet openly and discuss the matters of business for the citizens of Haltom City. We ask that you guide our hearts and our minds in a spirit of fairness, right thought, and speech. Please impart your supreme wisdom upon our activities so that all decisions may reach a successful conclusion. Lord, we ask for your continued hand of protection over our military and first responders. Please bring them home safely and provide comfort to their families while they're away. Thank you for always being our source of guidance. We ask these in the name of Jesus. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Now moving on to the announcements and events by our City Secretary, Mr. Art Camacho.
Thank you, Mayor. The announcements for July 24th, 2017, in the public library: story time, Super Science Saturdays, bilingual story time, coloring and cookies for grown-ups, summer reading program activities, sing-along afternoons, and family movie night are all listed on the library's website for the dates and times. The GED study classes registration is being held now, and classes will begin August the 8th from 5 to 8 p.m. The ladies' night out will be Saturday, August 12th from 5:30 to 9:30 p.m. And as of this morning, there were 11 tickets still available for sale, and the ticket price is $45. In community projects, please save the date for the 2017 Haltom City Back to School Health Fair happening at Haltom High School on Saturday, July 29th from 9 a.m. to 12 noon. The first 1,000 Haltom City Elementary and Middle School students to 10. They can register in person at the rec center or online. The Haltom City Pee Wee football and cheerleading signups begin this Saturday, July 29th from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. at the Haltom City Northeast Center, and we'll be there on Saturdays in August. The Birdville Museum is open by appointment only this summer, so please call them at 817-547-5498 to set up an appointment. Terry Waters, retired Haltom City Fire Department Fire Lieutenant, is hosting a blood drive with the Carter Blood Care on Wednesday, August 10th from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. at the Haltom City Northeast Center. And look for the new August and September Crossroads newsletter in your mailbox this week, and contact Julie Orbaugh if you need to be added to the mailing list. Public Works, the railroad crossing across Haltom Road between Glenview Drive and Stanley Keller Road, is being double-tracked. Traffic conditions for motorists will change through mid-August with a traffic pattern provided on the city's website. And now, Public Works Director Greg Van Nieuwenhuis will present the Veterans Memorial Update.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm not sure if all of y'all realize where we are at on that project. If you'll recall back at your second meeting in May, you did authorize the city entering into a contract. That contract was executed on Friday, June the 30th, with a firm called Fort Worth Civil Constructors in the amount of $851,212. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the JFK Memorial in Fort Worth by what used to be the Radisson Hotel. I'm not sure what it's by the Convention Center. The same firm that did that is who's doing our memorial. So this is what we kind of started with, or I should say, this was probably about the midpoint. We started with a lot less than this, but this is pretty much what we gave the contractor and said, build this, and then we want it to look like this. So what you see in that drawing on the left is closest to Haltom Road. There will be a Texas Lone Star. Within the middle, that circular area will be that water fountain granite structure that you see on the right that has been purchased. And the rectangular area at the top will actually be the arch, and that's closer to Gaines Court. There's quite an extensive construction schedule. However, I thought I would just point out some of the highlights. To date, you've probably noticed that some of the trees are gone, that their stumps. That was the city's part of the site work for the platform area, and we removed that last week. The contractor's supposed to be site grading July 26th, which is Wednesday. Another milestone is he's going to begin the foundation work on August 2nd, which is also right around the corner. The block cast stone construction is to begin on August 30th. Lighting's to begin on October 4th. The paver installation will begin on August 16th. The pedestal and wall construction on September 25th. And the contractor's estimating a substantial completion date of October 31st. By contract, the substantial completion date is November 6th. However, he's obviously trying to meet that by then some. The reason why it's November 6th and not the 11th, because we are planning on having a ceremony on the 11th. Hopefully we'll set up some grandstands or something for the public ahead of time, and we'll need a few days to do that, so that's why November 6th was chosen as a substantial completion date. There is a fundraiser currently scheduled. That fundraiser is August 26th. It starts at noon. It's at the American Legion Post on Carson Street. There will be various bands, the Afghanistan Memorial Wall. There will be an auction, and speaking of the auction, if there's items that you would like to donate, you can drop them off at Paul's Flower Boutique at 1800 Haltom Road. That's just north of 121. And that's all I had for you on the memorial. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Greg, for that fantastic presentation. Are there any questions or comments from Councilmember Grove?
Hey, Greg, what is the definition of substantially complete?
What are we going to consider that?
We actually had a lawyer write this one instead of an engineer.
Nice.
So we're substantially complete. All the work has to, his work. The city's doing the grassing. We're putting in some conduit and some other things. But in terms of items that are in his contract, substantial complete is the platform's done.
Okay.
And then the arch, let me see if this work right in here, this ornate work, might not be in.
Okay.
If it's not in, there will be panels there, so it won't look hideous.
Okay.
So there are inscriptions on this panel, and there's the same on the similar side. So all of that will be done. The only thing that might be missing is this ornate
More
work
ornate.
here and some of this cornice work. And that work has to be done, if I remember correctly, within 30 days of the November 6th date. He, on his schedule, has that to be done prior to the November 6th date as well. However, that's being done by a subcontractor that he has very little control of right now. And this type of product is very hot, and there's very few entities in the U.S. that do this type of work.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
And we also want to thank Deborah Gagliardi with the Gagliardi Group for designing this for us. She worked closely with our Veterans Memorial Committee, so we certainly want to thank her for her service as well. Are there any other questions or comments from the council? Seeing none? Thank you, Greg.
I'd like to make one comment.
Councilmember Nunn.
I just want to add that the globe is rotating,
Right.
and then it's a waterfall.
See,
It'll be very nice.
It'd be very nice. Christy did a great job on that.
and it will have water flowing around it.
Now the question is there going to be a star where Haltom City is on the globe?
Possibly.
Thank you, Greg.
Thank you.
So, moving right along to presentation, World Changers Project, Julie Orbaugh and Derek Wood. Welcome to the both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Okay, so World Changers, we were introduced to World Changers in the spring this year, and it's a group out of, well, I'm going to let Mark actually talk a little bit more about World Changers and what they do. But we were introduced, Derek and I, to do a project here in the city. So we identified a house on Haltom Road that we decided, we just knocked on their door and asked them if they wanted some help. So that's kind of how that one worked. So the house is 5016 Carol Dean Court, and it's right on the corner of Haltom Road, right past Stanley Keller. And they had been cited for their fence right here, as you can see. He was a great guy. He was so excited about this kind of offer to help, and so we kind of worked with him a little bit to determine the scope of work based on the budget we had. But this is basically what was going on. You can see in the chimney, it's rotted wood. I don't even think we see this side where the whole side was rotted. In the back, you can't see it as much, but the front, you can see quite a bit of work needs to be done. And it was a 2-story, so that was kind of a challenge for a volunteer group. But they made it happen, and you can see right here, they got brand new siding. They had to get it from Comanche because it's vintage and it was really hard to find, so they had to get it in Comanche, but they did get it. You can see these are all youth. They have some adults with them helping train them about how to make these kinds of repairs, but these are youth kids coming here for 4 days, and they made these incredible changes to these guys, to this house. Derek, please step in if you want. So we've got scaffolds, we've got this one in the bottom. This is the right side of the fence. They took the whole entire fence down on both sides to replace it. The guy's doing stuff in the landscaping in the front.
What they're doing is they actually replaced the fence with metal post, and they replaced the siding and the soffit, and then repainted it. There was significant rot and water damage to the home, and the fence was really dilapidated, and the homeowners do actually have a swimming pool in the back, so it was even more of a concern to get that and make it secure.
And it was an 8-foot fence out of code, so this way we replaced it with a 6-foot fence, and that was able to
Yes, and y'all probably seen this home. It's very, very visible right on, when you first come into town, right on Haltom Road at Carroll Dean Court. And go by there again now and
Yeah.
take a look at it.
If you're coming out of O.H. Stowe, that's one of the houses you see.
Yeah, it is.
Yes.
So here's the new and improved version. So you can see at the chimney, they rebuilt the entire chimney. They re-sided it, repainted it. You can see part of the fence. On the next one, you can see it a lot. But they did quite a bit to improve the exterior of this home. And then here's the other side on the left. That's the side that faces Haltom Road. So now it's completely improved. So much better with the brand new fence.
Fantastic.
So there you go. And here's the two groups that did all of this work in those 4 days. In addition to the construction coordinator, Mark Haven, who we have here today. You want to come up?
Mayor and council, I want to say thank you for letting World Changers come into your community and work for your homeowners. We are a mission-based group out of Nashville, Tennessee. We are operated by Lifeway Christian Stores, and they have a mission group, and we're part of them. World Changers has been around almost 30 years, and we do projects all over the country, including Alaska and Puerto Rico.
Wow.
This year, I want to say we did 60 different work sites over a 6-week period across the country. I've been personally doing as a coordinator. I'm a volunteer. I do not get paid to do this. This is all what I want to do. I've been doing it for 12 years. I usually do 5 projects a summer. This summer I did 1, and that was right here. That's in my hometown, so it's where I need to be. It's kind of neat because I have a connection. I work for a local roofing company based here in Haltom City, right around the corner, and I have the knowledge to be able to bring people in to do this. All this work done by youth from the ages of 12 years old, going on 13 to 21,
Wow.
and then we have a number of adults on each crew. Nobody has a construction background except for myself and the gentlemen and women I bring in to help me supervise the houses. So I'm hoping this will start a relationship where we can do more each year and progress to help your city.
And he's right. Nobody gets paid. They're all volunteers.
Yeah.
They're all, including him and Sean, the pastor in North Carolina.
Just to give you a background, all of these students pay $269 each to travel from 5 different states. That we stayed at Temple Christian School over at 820 Randall Mill on the floors of classrooms on air mattresses and cots. So they don't come to be comfortable. They don't come because we have internet or TV or special shows in the evening. They get up in the morning, we have breakfast, we travel to the work sites, we work in the heat of Texas, and then we go back, they get showers, have dinner, we worship that night, have youth group devotions with our youth groups, and we do it all again the next day.
Fantastic.
And initially, they had their sights set bigger than just one home, but we had kind of looked at a corridor that we thought would be seen when you walk in, when you first enter our community, which was right on Haltom Road, by the, just south of the railroad tracks. We attempted to contact several other homes on that street multiple times by phone, by going and knocking on the door, and we were actually very unsuccessful about it. When we'd first gone and we'd canvassed the street, I believe we were looking at somewhere between 4 to 6 homes to do some type of project on, and it ended up we were only able to do the one because we were unable to get a hold of the rest of the homeowners. Either that or there were several that were rental right there on that street as well. So, but they did have their sights set to do a lot more than what they did.
Fantastic.
Well, that's it. Thank you very much.
Well, fantastic. Thank you. Councilmember Fowler, do you want to make a comment?
Oh, I wanted to ask Mr. Haven, if you don't mind, of course, this is a faith-based, you said it's
Yes,
somewhat
sir.
of a mission type operation or
Yes, sir.
project that y'all do. But now, if you don't mind, Sean, it's from Northwood, is that correct?
We're from North Park Baptist
North
Church.
Park,
and-
I'm
yeah,
sorry.
yeah.
Because I want to, he's not here, but I think our city manager and assistant city manager both, because he had actually called last summer and took the time. Our assistant city manager went down and we met with Sean,
Sean is our head pastor.
head pastor.
And also lives in Haltom City.
Right.
And then there's another gentleman by the name of Devin Beavers, I believe
Right.
some of you know, that helped
sir.
us with that too.
And Mr. Beavers is the one that contacted me and asked me about it. But I wanted to thank our staff because they worked hard to, as well as y'all.
Sure.
Of course, y'all did the legwork, but all the hard work, the heavy lifting, but these guys figured out a way to work towards, they were very receptive to saying, hey, this is a great opportunity, and, we only had X amount of dollars, and I think they are trying to work with y'all to be able to, like you said, do a lot of projects, and we're, making, I guess, Mr. Manager, if you could put a plug in, because we're doing things through Six Stones, through
Yeah, and
other.
if the council will remember this tomorrow night at budget workshop, because we're going to ask for some money.
We may.
So we're gonna ask you guys to.
Everybody listening?
Yeah. That's not good. So thanks for the plug. But we're gonna ask the council to approve a line item for next year's budget for $100,000 for community revitalization for groups such as this and Six Stones and Northwood, and we've got so many volunteers, Mid-Cities Care Corps and Bethesda. So we're gonna put a line item in there so we can help you out financially next year. So
That would be great. We want to help the citizens and make the council look good too, right?
yeah, and of course Julie and Derek work. This is not their only project. They work very, very hard on a lot of different projects, finding houses specifically to fix up. So we appreciate them too. But
And not to forget them. I mean, like I say, they get it. They're you can see they're invaluable to us. But if you would tell Sean and Devin, thanks for doing it, and hopefully this will be a long relationship and moving forward. And we just, like I say, when he presented it last year, everything was already pretty much already accounted for and all that. But staff said, look, this is a deal. We'll figure out a way to help and get something started. So we do appreciate all y'all's.
We stretched it and made it work, and I think we stretched it pretty good, didn't we?
Yeah.
You said you were staging out of Temple Christian School?
Yes.
I went to school there many years ago.
Okay, Pastor
High
Sean,
School.
we're talking about, did also, and
High
his
School.
kids go there now, so.
Fantastic. Thank you, every one of you, for everything you've done. Moving on to Haltom City Fine Arts Scholarship winners. Julie Orbaugh, welcome back.
Hello, I'm back. Okay, good evening, Mayor and Council members. I was fortunate to present our 3 Haltom City graduating seniors each with a $500 Fine Arts Student Scholarship at the Northeast Tarrant County Chamber of Commerce May Scholarship Luncheon. This scholarship was a way for the city to support students here while also promoting the importance of fine arts in education. They support a strong community. Applicants were evaluated by their participation in the fine arts programs for at least 2 years, as well as their leadership in the community and academic performance. This year's winners were Natalie Nunanati, Gavin Ricks, and Casey Romero. Sorry, getting nervous. Natalie Nunanati, she's here. I'm so glad they all were able to come. They're so busy getting ready for college. She was in the top 5% of her class, as well as being an AP scholar. She was a member of 3 choirs in Haltom, including the show choir, and served as a choir officer, as well as being in the Pride of Haltom band for 3 years, where she was a squad leader. She was president of the Prayer Club, vice president of National Honor Society, and an officer in the Humanitarian Club. Natalie had a 99 average and was ranked 24th in her class of 542. Natalie will be attending Dallas Baptist University with plans to study music education with a vocal emphasis, and hopes to come back to Haltom High School to be the choir director. Natalie, she also has a whole lot of other stuff that I didn't fit in here. Natalie impresses with her energy and incredible ability to do everything. She's a bright, shining star, and she will achieve anything she sets her mind to. And she wanted to say something, so I'm going to let her.
Thank you. I just wanted to say good evening and just thank you. I am so immeasurably blessed to be living in a city that not only cares and protects for the lives of their citizens, but takes the time to invest in the well-beings of their students. And overall, I am so thankful and blessed for this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Natalie. Okay, next, Gavin Ricks. He told us he only took choir as a freshman to get his fine arts credit, but fell in love with it and has been in the school choir ever since. He was named as the most outstanding junior in the a cappella choir and also joined the Haltom Singers in 2016. Gavin was captain of the varsity football and track teams and was also on the varsity wrestling team. He was chosen as the 2017 BISD Outstanding Core Citizen, as well as the Homecoming King. Gavin had a 94 average and was ranked 81st out of his class of 542. Gavin is going to be going to Texas Tech University in Lubbock and has plans to major in business management. Gavin impressed us with his positive outlook and how he wants to be an advocate for change and aspires to break stereotypes. Gavin has defined himself on his terms, and because of that, we think he's already there. And he would like to say a word.
I just wanted to thank the council for taking the time to actually think about investing back in the Haltom High School and actually investing in, and it shows how much you guys care about the students here in Haltom City, and I just want to thank you all for that. Thank you very much.
Okay. And last is Casey Romero. She's been part of the Pride of Haltom Band for 7 years and served as drum major, section leader, and squad leader. Casey's a member of the National Honor Society and DECA, and also was the president and founding member of the Haltom Humanitarian Society. In April, she coordinated Glam Girls with Rescue Her, which was a makeover event for middle schoolers that brought awareness to human trafficking. Casey had a 95 average and ranked 63rd out of her class of 542. She will be attending Concordia University in Austin, and she won the Presidential Scholarship, and she also works at the Rec Center for the summer camp. And she will, has plans to become a medical social worker. She wants to change lives for the better, and we are so proud that she is from Haltom. So, and she doesn't want to say anything. So. Okay, so thank you very much. Any questions? I always forget to ask that.
Any questions or any comments from the council for Julie or the recipients?
No.
Councilmember Grow.
I'm just proud that we have 3 fine, outstanding students that are about to go out to different parts of the country and represent Haltom City and do great things. And looking forward to you guys coming back.
Dr. Tron.
My experience with 3 of you and the rest of your classmates. When I first came in America in 1987, I joined police force, and people laugh at me, say you can speak English or you can write English. They tell the truth because I didn't have any education in America. Since that time, I tell them, let's see what I can do. Took me 20 years with many sleepless nights. I finished my bachelor, master, and PhD in criminal justice. Never give up. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tron. I just want to piggyback on everybody, both council members here have said. I'm very proud of each and every one of you. I have no doubt you're going to accomplish and also exceed your expectations. And I'm so proud that you're from Haltom. Thank you. Moving on to our reports, monthly financial report for June 2017. Ms. Fung. Everything's going to sound dull. Now we're talking numbers. Welcome, Ms. Fung.
Mayor and the City Council, it's a pleasure to present to you the June financial. This is the 3rd quarter for the fiscal year. As you see that our financials performed as what we have budgeted, and by the end of June, the city has received a total revenue of $58.5 million. This is about 88%, and also the expenditure about $47.5 million, which is about 63%. And our funding, the ending fund balance is about $41 million. And this will tell you that all the funds are performing almost as budgeted, except one fund, which is the grant fund, which has a negative fund balance right now. The reason is that grant fund is that we will spend the money first before we get the reimbursement from the grant agencies. That's the reason why. And we will correct that situation as we come close to the end of the year. Okay, looking at the largest fund, which is the general fund, you can see that the total revenue is about almost $23 million for the year, which is about 85%. And the expenditure right now is at about almost $19 million, which is about 70%. Our fund balance right now is at $10.3 million. We predict that at the end of the year, we have only about $6.1 million. Okay, the largest revenue for general fund is the property tax. Right now, we collected about 98% of the property tax. And you can see that it's almost like the budget. And then for sales tax revenue, and it is performing much better than the budget, because it seems that our sales tax revenue is really higher than what we predicted. It is because the economy is good and Haltom City citizens spend their money in Haltom City. That is important. Okay, looking at the comparison of the sales tax to the past 3 years, you can see that this year is much higher because the allocation is a little bit different. We allocate more revenue to the sales tax to general fund instead of going to EDC fund. Okay, this is the comparison to the other city for the month of June. You can see that Haltom City is really the highest right now, is 11.3% higher than the previous year. We have the highest percentage. And then for the year, it is about 11% higher than the previous year. Richland Hills beat us anyway. So, but it's a very good and very encouraging sales tax revenue for the city. Are there any questions?
Thank you, thank you, Ms. Fung. Are there any questions from the council? Councilmember Fowler.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Jennifer, when, I'm sorry, Ms. Fung, when do you typically get grant funding reimbursement?
It all depends on the grant agency. And usually it's like that. You have to spend the money first, then you ask for reimbursement.
Right, but will it typically be in, or is it going to be a budget adjustment year end, or will it typically take place before year end?
Some of them, they will not come in until next year.
Okay, so then.
But we have to spend first before we get the reimbursement.
I understand that, but we'll do a budget adjustment at that point then.
Yes, we'll do some
financial or accounting adjustment.
Yes.
Okay,
it would be positive.
What percentage do you anticipate being out?
It's not the percent. The fund is very small, so it's about it's less than 100,000. So okay. Let me see. Let me look at this.
That's very large.
Grant fund. Right now, we budgeted the expenditure to be 50,000 for the year, and right now we are currently at 29,000.
Okay.
So it's not huge amount, but it's always like that for the grant fund.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Councilmember Fowler. Are there any other questions from the council for Ms. Fung? Okay, seeing none, moving on to the quarterly investment report for 2017.
Okay, this is another good report that I would like to show the council. Here we go. At the end of June, you can see that our investment is at about $41 million compared to the previous period, about $40 million. We have about $1.1 million more investment and cash than the previous quarter. And also the unrealized loss is reduced from 122,000 to 110. As I have mentioned, the unrealized loss is just a booking because we are not selling our investment right away. If we sell it, we have a loss. But if we keep it until maturity, we don't have any loss. So that is the reason that we need to keep track with it, but we never realize unrealized gain, unrealized loss. Okay, all right. And the interest for the period is about $46,000, and our WAM, that is average maturity, weighted average maturity is about 386 days. which is a little bit shorter than the previous month of 452 days. And the yield, you can see that the interest rate is increasing a little bit. So last period was 1.1%, now it's 1.13. So, and the Treasury, our standard is 1.04, so we are still above the standard that we set for ourselves. Okay, looking at the allocations, you can see that we invest mostly is in the agency, that is Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and all those government agency securities, which is about 43%. And the next highest is the investment pool. Those are tax pool, Texas class, Texas daily, Texas term. Those are one-day liquidity that we can get back our money right away if we need it. And we also invest about $3.7 million, about 9% in certificate of deposit. Those are bank deposits. And then we have one security with Harris County, which is about $954,000, and the rest is cash. So make up the total of our portfolio. And if you wonder the liquidity, whoops, okay, you can see that we invest a lot of money in the pool and the cash, so you can see that a majority is right here. And then the 3 years securities, we have about $13 million of that. So this is our portfolio. My investment strategy is to either invest it in the 1 day or in the 3 year. And as the time goes on, then you will see this 1 year and also, because it's gradually reducing by itself, so as the time goes on. So this is to maximize the yield that we can get.
Ms. Fung, what's the difference, just to educate me, the difference in, say, the rates between the 1 day liquidity and the 2 to 3 year CD type?
What's the rate?
Right. What would be kind of the difference? And I know it fluctuates, but what would kind of be the?
Okay. If you look at June, this is about 1.6, 1.7%.
Okay.
And this is about 0.9, 1.1%.
So it's really, that's why you're more vested into the 1 to 30, which makes sense. It's not enough to make that big a difference for the liquidity of the money then.
Because we have enough to meet our, when we need the money, the operation and also the working capital is enough for them. Okay. And as you know that we are very restricted what we can invest. We can only invest in government securities and CDs. Those are the things that you see what we have here. Okay.
I think Councilmember Rowe had a question for you.
Mr. Fong, is there a ratio that you use to say how many dollars are going to go to longer term investments to the shorter term, or?
Whoops. No, there's no percentage, but I have to meet the cash requirement because I have a cash flow that I have to meet every month. Yes.
So it's based upon what your cash flow outlays are, and then whatever's extra can go into the longer.
Yes.
All right. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, this is the Treasury yield. You can see that the interest rate has been going up, and since if you compare to September here, this is September last year, and the June one is the pink one. So you can see that every category, 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, and 3 years, the interest rate is really going up. And we can only invest up to 3 years. We cannot go longer than that, because that's our investment policy, unless we change it. So, but for a city this size, usually 3 years maximum is good. Otherwise, we're taking too much risk. Okay, and then looking at the economy, the U.S. Gross domestic product, you can see that the last quarter, which is right here, the first quarter of 2017, you can see that it's about 1.4% higher than the previous quarter. And the next information will come out for the second quarter will be July 28th. So that is the most current information we can get. But you can see that the economy is doing good. The GDP is growing almost every quarter. Okay, and let's look at the consumer's confidence. Sometimes this is very important for you to predict the future, is to see how people think about things going. And the confidence level currently is at about 1.18, the index level. So if it is anything over 100, it's optimistic. If it is under, then it's not. So we are almost very high right now. So, and it's very good. So that people will spend their money and we'll get more sales tax, hopefully. All right. And the last one we'll show you is the Haltom City unemployment rate. Haltom City's unemployment rate at in May is about 3.8% compared to the national is about 4.3%. So Haltom City is doing much better comparing to the national average. So that's conclude my presentation. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Councilmember Fung. Are there any other questions or comments from the council for Ms. Fung? Seeing none, excellent presentation. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Moving on to agenda item number 3, the 2017 crime statistics for the second quarter. Chief Phillips, welcome, sir.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. I'll try not to Leslie library this thing up. First, I want to begin by telling you all the police and fire camp, or fire and police camp, depending on which profession you're from when the name goes first. But it started this morning. It runs from 8 to 4:30 every day. Currently, there's about 30 kids in there. A bunch of fire kids, some police kids are also helping out. So if any of y'all have a chance to stop by, that'd be a good time to stop by and see all the good things that are going on down there. This is going to be the second quarter for 2017, April through May crime stats. Again, and thank David Soriano for taking care of me on the PowerPoint and rearranging it for me. Again, we're going to start with basically the UCR divided into two Part 1 crimes, crimes against persons and crimes against property. Our total calls for service for the second quarter compared to the first quarter stayed about the same, and down 6% from the 2016 stats. We'll go into a little bit. There's some increase in some of the Part 1 crimes that we'll talk about here in a second. All the offenses compared to the first quarter are down 9%. As you remember, we had some robberies that increased it last quarter. Compared to last year's, up 8%. No murders. Rapes were up 10%. We went up 1. Again, these are, most of them are known offenders, mainly within the family environment, grandparents, uncles, moms, dads that are involved with that stuff. So they're all known offenders. And same for that. Robberies, we took a 63% decrease, and that was because we were so high in the first quarter. I said we had 19, and most of them were revolved around District 1 and District 3. And then the 40% increase quarter to quarter, but that is the leftovers from what were occurring in the first quarter. And that was District 1, which is the 28th and Beach corridor. That gas station that they just redid was one that was getting hit, and then it used to be Smiley's. I don't know if it's still that at Springdale and Beach. And they got hit a few times. Most of those you'll see in that last, should have been 2 attachments that y'all received. And the last one that's an Excel spreadsheet. It'll show you that the robberies actually decreased. We had 1 in June and 1 in or 1 in May and 1 in June. So most of these robberies are the ones that occurred in April. Aggravated assaults, again, these are neighbors fighting, friends fighting, and then this gets a little more serious than they wanted it to, and somebody ends up getting hurt pretty bad. And they're stayed about the same year to year. Burglary of a building, 6% increase, and here's the good one, 125% increase. It went from 16 to 36. With that being said, our CID divisions really hammered down on these guys and followed up on a bunch of leads. It really helps when some of the people that are getting burglarized are actually documenting their valuables, so we can trace it back in several different aspects or avenues that we have to find these people. Out of this, we've had 7 arrests. Most on that Excel spreadsheet actually shows a recovery of the property also. And out of those 7 arrests, a bunch of those are tied to numerous burglaries. The main part of these that were being burglarized were up the Denton Highway corridor, usually between Tuesday and Thursday mornings around 3 to 5 in the morning. Burglary of a residence is another category that's going to be up. Out of this, there were 5 arrested. There's 3 suspects, and then some that currently have warrants that are outstanding. The big items that were stolen out of there were guns, TVs, and jewelry. And most of them were forced doors, front and back doors. So theft actually took a decrease in both categories. Burglary of a motor vehicle, again, we had a problem last quarter with the apartment complexes getting hit, and they've actually taken a decrease in both categories also. That's a pretty good jump, 81 to 57. Vehicle thefts is going to be another category that was up. This was a ring that was going around in Haltom City. During the same time frame, it was 109. It went from 23 to 48. Out of those, there were also 7 arrests. 1 currently outstanding. It's got a warrant. We have a detective assigned to Auto Theft Division, and they actually come over and helped, and it was a little ring that was going around. Out of that, 26 trucks were stolen. Most of them were like the Chevy Silverado trucks. 19 cars, mainly Honda Civic, Honda Accords, and then 3 Harley-Davidson motorcycles. So if you have those vehicles, again, make sure they're locked, and if you got an alarm system, pay attention to it. Vandalism was down and basically stayed the same from year to year. The arrests were down 4%. DWIs were actually up. And then quarter to quarter ran about the same. On that last sheet, I'm sure y'all got the Excel. It should have had a bunch of little check marks on there. If you go into the details, it actually goes into the amount of property recovered, the amount of activity that the patrol officers are doing, and then they convert that into per population, what the crime rate is per the population. You have any questions?
Thank you, Chief Phillips. Are there any questions, Councilmember Grow?
On the arrests and the warrants that is it safe to say these are individuals that are outside our city that are just pilfering in our city?
Outside our city, yes and no, and it's
Okay.
a variety.
Right.
Some of the burglary of the vehicles that went around was a group of kids, and we saw it on Facebook where they were driving around the truck and they hit all those houses on Basswood in that area. They hit us. Some of the burglaries are tied to residents out of the north side, and they hit Roanoke, Keller, Colleyville, and then us. So there's others that are going to be involved with it, but the majority of those people are going to be hometown people that just walk around.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Councilmember Grow. Councilmember Nunn.
Thank you. Burglary of a building, would that be like a separate garage, or would that be counted as a residence?
If it's attached to a house, it's considered a residence. If it's, say, a building outside in the backyard, that would be a burglary of a building.
Of a building.
Yeah, it's got to be set up for overnight accommodations or attached to a building with set up for overnight accommodations.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Nunn. Dr. Trong.
Hi, Chief. I saw the most concerningly the burglary of the building and vehicle, and robbery too. And what you plan in the future to reduce them? You try to ask the owner install camera, or what you plan try to bring it down?
We've actually are in the process of implementing it's Spillman Analytics. It's basically an analytics program that allows the community to be involved within the crime stats. So they'll be able to look and do heat maps and look at the crime that's going on in their area. And they can drill down to how specific they want it to be or how broad the search criteria wants to be. We're trying to make it the public more informed. Cameras are always a good thing, but the biggest thing is just to have the police on the streets and actually unfortunately making the traffic stops, making contact with people that are out doing it, just to make sure that, you know, what are they doing? Do they need help? Or are they up to no good? And if they're up to no good, we'll address that also.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Trong. Are there any other questions or comments for Chief Phillips? Seeing none, excellent presentation. Thank you, sir. Moving on to the regular agenda. Agenda item number 4, the minutes, consideration and/or action regarding approval of the minutes of the meeting of July 10, 2017. There are no changes, so we are in line for a motion. Don't everybody jump in at once. Councilmember Grove.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we approve the minutes for the July 10th, 2017 meeting.
Thank you, sir. We have a motion for approval. Councilmember Watkins.
Second.
Motion for approval in a second. Council, if you would please signify your votes. Councilmember Brown? Okay, motion passes unanimous. Thank you, Council. Moving on to agenda item number 5, ordinance number O-2017-016-15. Ms. Batchelor, welcome.
Evening, Mayor and Council. This is the second reading of ordinance number O-2017-016-15, conditional use 00817. Consider action on the application of Ernest Hedgehog on behalf of Maldonado Gerardo to amend an existing conditional use permit dated April 14, 2014 for auto dealer use by the addition of auto paint and body use in the M1 Industrial District located on tracks 1F and 1J, abstract 24, John Acre Survey at 5213 Airport Freeway. On June 12, 2017, the City Council conducted a public hearing and continued to July 10th City Council. On July 10th, the City Council approved ordinance number O-2017-01615 by a vote of 5-0 with the following stipulations. 1. The primary use of auto dealer is allowed with operating hours of Monday through Saturday from 9 a.m. to 6:30 p.m., no Sunday. Accessory use of auto paint and body shop is allowed with operating hours of Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 6:30 p.m., no Saturday or Sunday. Auto paint and body shop work may only be internal use of business inventory vehicles, and the remainder 4 through 10 are from the original 2014 CUP. The applicant is here if you have any questions of staff or the applicant.
Thank you, Ms. Batchelor. Are there any questions from the council for Ms. Batchelor? Councilmember Fowler.
I don't have a question. I have more of a comment. Ms. Batchelor, did you develop this exhibit for the council?
Yes, based on our stipulations from the last council meeting.
Okay, and I really want to thank you for, this is the first time I've ever seen this be presented this way, and I do want to tell you how much I appreciate it, because then it doesn't allow us to make error on what we try to remember back through memory. So I do appreciate you doing it. It's very helpful.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Councilmember Fowler. Are there any other questions for from the council for Ms. Batchelor or the applicant? Councilmember Grove.
I think this is from the applicant. I understand you have other lots that you operate. Is this body shop going to be used for those vehicles for those other lots also?
Good evening. Yes.
Sir, if you would please just state your name for the record.
Yes, my name is Gerald Maldonado, and good evening. Yes, it will be used for all the locations.
All right, thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Okay. Any other questions from the council? Thank you, sir. I guess that was pretty simple. Thank you. We are in line for a motion. Councilmember Grove.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we approve ordinance number Oscar-2017-016-15, also conditional use 008-17, based upon the stipulations in Exhibit A on the second reading.
Okay, thank you, sir. We have a motion for approval on the second reading. Councilmember Nunn.
Thank you. This is for a second.
Thank you, Ms. Nunn. Councilmember Brown, did you have a question or comment? Okay, we have a motion for approval in a second. Council, if you would please signify your votes. Fantastic. Motion passes unanimous. Thank you, Mr. Maldonado. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your help. Thank you.
Moving on to agenda item number 6, property enhancement incentives grant. Again, Ms. Batchelor.
Mayor, the applicant wishes to reschedule that to August the 14th. He was unable to make the meeting tonight.
Okay, so everybody okay with that, rescheduling to August 14? Do we have to take action, or is no action good enough?
As long as it's put on the August 14th agenda, that's
Okay.
fine.
So we'll do it, August 14. Moving on to agenda item number 6, property enhancement incentive grant. Again, Ms. Batchelor.
Thank you. This is consideration and/or action for approval of a property enhancement incentive grant of $10,000 for facade enhancements valued at $49,883 to Chaz Buchanan Ventures LLC for property located at 5601 East Belknap Street, commonly known as the Haltom Theater. This is the proposed site plan of the parking for that property. These are exterior designs showing what improvements they propose to be making. Interior layout with their color scheme. Some interior enhancements. They're sticking with the Art Deco design theme. Layout of the restaurant, coffee bar, and auditorium. This is currently the floor plan. And this is the proposed seating for the renovations. The applicant is here, and just for the ones that don't know, they were here Thursday night at the EDC meeting requesting a grant for doing improvements. Mainly, one of the biggest costs is sprinkling that building.
Thank you, Ms. Batchelor. Are there any questions from the council for Ms. Batchelor or the applicant? That was simple enough.
Thank you.
Okay, we are in line for a motion. Councilmember Gray.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we approve the grant for the 5601 East Belknap Street project, better known as the Haltom City Theater.
Thank you, sir.
For the $10,000.
For the 10,000. And for those in the audience and also watching, the grant was also approved by the EDC unanimously as well, about last Thursday. Councilmember Watkins.
Second.
Thank you, sir. We have a motion for approval in a second. Councilmember Nunn, did you have a question or comment?
No, that was for a second also. Thank you.
Thank you. Council, we do have a motion for approval in a second. If you would please signify your votes. Motion passes unanimous. Thank you, Ms. Batchelor, and also Mr. Buchanan. Thank you as well. Moving on to agenda item number 8, special joint election, consideration and/or action regarding approval of resolution number R-2017-021-01, calling for a special election on November 7th, 2017, to fill the unexpired term of City Council Member Place 3, who is Mr. Garrett, and holding a joint election with Tarrant County. Mr. Camacho.
Thank you, Mayor. The Texas Election Code specifies that the first Tuesday after the first Monday in November shall be a uniform election date. Councilmember Place 3 Scott Garrett has resigned from his position in the Haltom City Charter states in Section 3.06 vacancies. In the event of a vacancy occurring in the office of mayor or city council member from any cause whatsoever, a special election shall be held at the next state uniform election date that allows time for holding the election as provided in state law. Therefore, a special election will be held to elect Council Place 3 to a one-year term. And as in the past, we've always held a joint election with Tarrant County because they have the electronic voting system, and they also do all the provisions in setting up with us, as we've worked with them probably over the last 7 years in a joint election situation. We don't know yet because we don't know how many other entities will be having a joint election, but we do know Tarrant County will be conducting one also. So I expect some of the election costs to be lowered somewhat because they're going to be also involved. And I do know that the regular election that we had, general election, was around 6,000 because there was a lot of people involved, but then we also had a runoff. I haven't got the numbers yet on the runoff, but I'm anticipating this election, so far as city expense, to be between $6,000 to $8,000.
Thank you, Mr. Camacho. Are there any questions or comments from the council for Mr. Camacho? Councilmember Fowler.
Mr. Camacho, is just semantics, or am I mistaken? And you said it's a 1-year term. Is that just terminology, or is it you have an election in November to fill that seat, but then that seat would also be required to turn around and run again in May in the general election?
Yeah, actually it's a 6-month term, but you put it in terms.
It has to be called a 1-year.
1-year term. It's just a one-term situation.
Yeah,
But they will have to run because Mr. Garrett Place 3 is up in 2018 of May.
Okay, thank you for clarification.
Just for clarification, yes, this will be from November through next May. Councilmember Grow.
I understand this is because of the charter, the way that the charter is written, and maybe we should look at the charter review for this particular thing. For the cost of the city to have an election just for a 6-month period. It's one of those things where maybe that we either suspend it until the next May election, or have the council appoint somebody for that period of time. But just for the cost of the city, I understand that the charter review has to be done, but that might be something that we have to look at and.
When I served at a prior city, when we had this situation happen, where there was not going to be a full term, the charter was changed that said a unanimous selection by the council, they could appoint someone to fill that term if it was less than a full term. And that way, you were spared the cost, because you did have sometimes turnaround, as we lost 2 from within a year's period of this time.
Mm-hmm.
Had to cover both with a special election, which, yeah, the charter could be probably reviewed, but since we did it, and in 2015 we could come around to 2018, it would be eligible to do another charter amendment. If you want to just amend that one particular section, it would be able to be put on possibly in the May. I'll have to double check, but I think either May or November 2018 you could have because you have to wait 2 years to change your charter.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions or comments from the council for Mr. Camacho? Seeing none, we are on line for a motion. Councilmember Gray.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we approve Resolution Romeo-2017-021-01, calling for a special election to fill City Council Place 3.
Thank you, Councilmember Grow. We have a motion for the approval. Councilmember Fowler.
Mayor, I was just going to make sure, since Councilmember Grow doesn't get paid double tonight for making all the motions, but I'd like to second that motion.
Thank you, sir. We have a motion for approval and a second. Council, if you would please signify your votes. Motion passes unanimous. Moving on to the Visitors and Citizens Forum. This is a time set aside for anyone in the audience who would like to speak before the City Council tonight. Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to resignation of board members. I don't see that we have no resignation, so.
We do have an appointment.
Okay, moving on to agenda item number 10, appointments/reappointments. Councilmember Fowler.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess, did we get clarification for sure on the potential EDC vacancy? In the absence of that, I'd like to ask that the council, I'd like to submit a name for consideration. Mr. Gary Blocker, that used to be a former council member and business owner, longtime resident of our community, I just took it upon myself to ask and see if he might consider doing it. I thought he might be an individual that would, potentially, bring some expertise from being a business owner as well as a former council member. And, like I say, I had the opportunity to serve with him many years ago, and he's a very forthright and very knowledgeable man. And, that's just up to the council to consider. But I would like to submit his name for consideration.
EDC?
For the EDC position, it'd be the third vacancy for the citizens position.
Mm-hmm. I know Mr. Blocker. I've known him very well for a very long time. He's always been a voice of reason and one of sound judgment. So we have a nomination.
Do I need to? Okay, never mind.
No, go ahead, Mr. Fowler.
I just didn't know if I needed to state an address or not.
No, we have it.
If it's considered.
We know
where to find him.
Yeah. So we have a motion for appointment of Gary Blocker to the EDC. If you would please ratify the appointment. Motion passes unanimous. We definitely want to thank her and welcome Mr. Blocker to the EDC.
Mr. Camacho, his address is 3733 East Ridge.
Now we all know where he lives. Moving on, let's see here. Councilmember Grow, I believe you were next, and then Dr. Trong.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a couple of reappointments.
Okay.
One, Miriam Hilliard for Planning and Zoning,
Okay.
and Tony Holmes for Beautification Board.
Okay, everybody hear that? Marion Hilliard for P&Z and Tony Holmes for Beautification Board. If you would please ratify with your votes. What happened? I promise I did not do anything.
Well, let's just do it by a show of hands.
Okay,
All
but-
those in favor, raise your hand, please.
All in,
Unanimous,
okay,
okay.
unanimous vote
Right
there.
hand, Walter.
Yeah, right hand. You are the right hand. Did you have any others, Walter? Was that the only one?
No,
Yeah.
Tony Holmes and Miriam.
Okay.
Yeah, that was it.
Dr. Trung.
Yes, Mayor and Council. I would like to nominate Mr. Oli Anderson for ZBA board, and she lived in Haltom City over 20 years. Most of the time, she worked with election, administrator in Tarrant County. She also served as the chair, and she had a very good, background of, her occupation, and she had a bachelor degree in accounting.
Okay.
And she currently retired, so she loved to be ZBA board member, and I would like to introduce you, nominate her for the board.
Okay, thank you. Did everybody get that? Miss Olafine Anderson, correct? We have,
Oli Anderson, yeah.
yes, we have place 7 on the ZBA. We have our application on file.
And is that there are two alternates on that?
Yeah, I
Okay.
have one to make
Okay,
tonight.
but I just, so it's for the regular for Dr. Trong's
Right,
position?
it's
Okay.
mayors that are alternate.
Let's just take that by a show of hands, right hands. All those in favor?
Motion,
Okay.
well, I don't vote, so. Okay, so,
Okay, now you have one, Mayor.
I have one. So, moving on to, anybody else have anything? No? Okay, I have a nomination as an alternate to the P&Z, Miss Lillian Fury. Miss Lillian Fury to the P&Z. Lillian Fury, we have our application on file. Everybody, if you would, just signify your vote with raising of your right hand. No, P&Z, as an alternate.
Okay. All those in favor? All right.
Motion passes. Fantastic. All righty. Welcome, Ms. Fury. Let's see here. With no absences to excuse, we will now convene into executive session pursuant to 551, 071, 072, and 074 at 8:08.